Welcome to REBT Works, where we discuss everything having to do with rational emotive behavioral therapy. I'm Dr. Steve Johnson, and today's topic was actually recommended by someone who wanted me to look at the CBT and REBT on the nature of dysfunctional beliefs, what the similarities and differences might be between how both of those models deal with dysfunctional beliefs. So let me begin with a little history. The second wave of cognitive behavioral therapies was begun by Albert Ellis and what eventually came to be known as rational emotive behavioral therapy, or REBT. The other second wave model followed shortly after the development of REBT with Beck's formulation of cognitive behavioral therapy, also called CBT. And to a large degree, these two models help clients free themselves from the negative consequences of embracing irrational or unhelpful beliefs through a systematic process of one, helping the client to identify the client's held irrational or unhelpful beliefs, and then systematically helping the client become aware of the dysfunctional consequences of those beliefs, the dysfunctional emotions, behaviors, and even physiological responses to those irrational beliefs. And thirdly, helping the client identify more flexible and adaptive beliefs, and then replacing the rigid, dysfunctional, irrational beliefs with the more flexible and adaptive rational beliefs. Thus, a crucial concept in both CBT and REBT is the concept of belief. So in this lecture, I'm going to attempt to discuss how these two very important models conceptualize irrational or dysfunctional beliefs and the types of such beliefs they consider. And finally, we will briefly consider some of the similarities and differences between the two conceptualizations. Let's begin with CBT. CBT differentiates core beliefs from intermediate beliefs, automatic negative thoughts, and cognitive distortions. Judith Beck, in a very excellent text, has referred to core beliefs as, quote, the most central ideas about the self, end quote. She, however, goes on to extend that definition or that statement to include beliefs about other people and the world. Core beliefs about the self are then subdivided into three subcategories: the helpless core beliefs about the self, unlovable core beliefs about the self, and then worthless core beliefs about the self. And let's take some examples of each of those stated by Judith Beck herself. Some examples of the helpless core beliefs of the self are: I am weak, I am powerless, I am incompetent, I'm inadequate, I'm defective, or I am trapped, and so on. Some examples of unlovable core beliefs of the self include: I am unlovable, I am unlikable, I'm different, I'm bound to be abandoned, and I'm bound to be rejected, and there are many more. And then finally, some examples of worthless core beliefs about the self include, of course, I am worthless, I am toxic, I am immoral, or I don't deserve to live. And then CBT has intermediate beliefs, and those are attitudes, assumptions, both positive assumptions and negative assumptions, and then rules. Some examples of intermediate beliefs related to the helpless core belief about the self, I am a failure, are as follows. An attitude might be: it's horrible to be a failure. Some assumptions: a positive assumption might be, if I work very hard, I can do a passable job at a task. Or a negative assumption is, if I don't work very hard, I will fail at a task. And then there are rules, such as I should always do my best, or I should do a task perfectly, or I should never fail at a task. CBT also has a long list of cognitive distortions that include beliefs such as catastrophizing, believing that a situation or event is a total catastrophe, or labeling something, reducing a complex phenomenon or even a person to a label, or all or nothing thinking, which is kind of black-white thinking, dividing things into two kind of irreconcilable categories. And then there are automatic negative thoughts, and those are thoughts that logically are linked to core beliefs and that are triggered in a given situation and which tend to be more easily identified by the client than some of the core beliefs. These are automatic negative thoughts can be those beliefs about which the client is very much aware. An example might be a student who holds a core belief, I am a failure, might, upon learning that the final exam in a course will be a comprehensive final exam, may have the automatic negative thought, I will fail this final exam. So that's a brief summary of how CBT deals with beliefs. Now, if we shift to REBT, REBT identifies as the core dysfunctional belief demandingness, which is synonymous with what CBT previously labeled imperatives or should or ought statements. The demandingness in English typically is evidenced by words such as should, ought, must, have to, and or need. And those demands can be toward the self, others, life, world, frustration, or even one's own psychological processes. Then there are associated with core demandingness beliefs that REBT labels as derivatives. And these are awfulizing, which is equivalent to CBT's catastrophizing. This is where someone believes that something is terrible or horrible or awful. And then frustration intolerance, for which I've not found an exact equivalent in CBT, although I have to confess I haven't done a complete and exhaustive search on that topic. So if someone has some information about that, please share that with everybody here. And then frustration intolerance would be, this is too much, this is going to be the death of me yet, all of those kinds of beliefs. And then there is global negative rating. Global negative rating of what? The self, others, life, the world, and so forth. And the global negative rating of the self, of course, is equivalent to some of CBT's core beliefs about the self. The global negative rating of others in the world, of course, is equivalent to the extension of core beliefs in CBT to both others and the world. One important distinction between CBT and REBT's conceptualization of core beliefs about the self is that what CBT labels as core beliefs of the self, REBT would divide into global negative self-rating and inferences about the self. To understand this point, we need to look at REBT's stipulative definitions of the word belief and inference, since it does make that distinction. In REBT, an inference is a thought that attributes meaning to a situation, event, or state of affairs. In other words, it functions as an interpretation of those entities, situation, event, or state of affairs. In REBT, however, a belief doesn't attribute meaning or function as an interpretation, but rather a belief functions as an evaluation of the situation, etc. Thus, in REBT, inferences are taken to be either true or false, or potentially so, even if the truth value is currently unknown. It must at least be theoretically possible to determine the truth value of the statement. Beliefs, however, are not true or false, but are either helpful or unhelpful in the attainment of one's desired goals or in directly causing a dysfunctional emotion. So the following, which are listed by CBT as core beliefs about the self, would function as inferences within REBT. For example, I am trapped. We would see that in REBT as either true or false, or, hopefully it could be determined as such, or I am different. So again, these we would see as inferences, and then we would deal with the truth value of those, but we wouldn't call those beliefs. What about the intermediate beliefs within CBT, the attitudes, assumptions, and rules? Do they have equivalents in REBT? And it's really interesting because lately this word attitude has been used or been suggested to be used within REBT for the word beliefs, and we'll see how that what traction that gets over the next few years. So again, what about those intermediate beliefs in CBT, the attitudes, assumptions, and rules? Do they have equivalents in REBT? Well, attitudes in CBT are often what REBT would view as one form of irrational beliefs, whether core demandingness or one of the derivatives. For example, the statement, "it is horrible to be a failure," which CBT would label as an attitude, is an example of a conjunction of two irrational beliefs from an REBT perspective, namely awfulizing, where it is believed that it is horrible, and a global negative rating, to be a failure, okay? So that combination gives us an irrational belief. Assumptions in CBT are often either what REBT would view as an inference or a prediction, another form of cognition. For example, if I work hard, I might do a good job, which functions as an assumption in CBT, might be viewed in REBT as an interpretation of one's actions or a prediction of one's performance in the future. Rules in REBT, such as "I should never fail" or "I should always pass," would be considered by REBT to be forms of core demandingness. In summation, there are many, many similarities between how CBT and REBT conceptualize the nature of beliefs, while there are also some differences, and chief among those differences are, very briefly, because we've already covered it, is what CBT calls beliefs are sometimes differentiated into beliefs and inferences by REBT. And while CBT and REBT identify some beliefs as core beliefs, what they so identify may be different. CBT would see core beliefs as what REBT would see as global negative ratings of self, others, the world, etc. REBT would see the core beliefs as instances of demandingness. Another difference is that CBT categorizes beliefs as core beliefs, intermediate beliefs, automatic negative thoughts, and cognitive distortions. REBT categorizes beliefs as core demandingness and then derivative beliefs, and then distinguishes some of CBT's beliefs as inferences or predictions. So, both CBT and REBT are very important psychotherapies that have helped many, many clients over a long number of years. And it has helped those clients overcome disturbed emotions, self-sabotaging behaviors or behaviors that disrupt relationships, and physiological conditions that over time can have deleterious effects on someone's physical health. So I hope you found this presentation helpful, and if you did, I look forward to having you join us on future such presentations. Thanks so much and have a great day.